Okay, so I think it's recording. Let me share my screen. All right, you share your screen
Yeah,
first.
I share my screen and let
All
me know
right,
when you're ready for the question.
yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, so Mr. Noguera, I heard that you were getting a minor in math, so I wanted to show you this. So the problem you're going to be dealing with is you're going to create a function that returns a Boolean. And what that Boolean is going to be used for is this. So you're going to be having a main where a person is going to input a string. The user is going to input a string. Let's say the string is this. It's parentheses or the squiggly parentheses, curly bracket, parentheses, another curly bracket, and then two square brackets. Let's say that's what the user inputs. And then what's going to happen is you're going to make a function that has this string as a parameter. And what that function is going to do is going to return true or false. And if it's true, the function, if the function returns true, then it prints out that the operation is balanced. And else, meaning that it prints false, then it's gonna, let's see, looking for parentheses, then it's gonna print not balanced. So, like I said before, all I want you to do is create a function for this, where you take in a user string that's only comprised of these three. It can either be a parentheses, brackets, or wait, curly brackets, parentheses, or regular brackets. It's only these three. There's nothing more it could be.
Okay,
Create
so
the
if that's your parameter, the string, or
yeah, that
whatever
was
equation it's gonna be is gonna be your parameter.
yeah,
Um,
it's gonna be a string.
okay, and it has to have one of those three pairs in the or can it have both or
It can have multiple. So what the function you're writing for is balanced parentheses. That's why I asked about math. In math, for example, if you have something like this is going to give you an error because there's not a balanced parentheses, right?
uh-huh.
So this is how you check the stack, or what you're going to be making right here is you're going to be making the function that returns true or false based on if the function or the expression, which is the string that you're passing a parameter, is balanced. So for example, this would be what?
Uh parentheses.
Yeah, but is it balanced or is it not balanced?
It is balanced.
And what about for this one? Is this balanced?
No.
No. What about now?
Yes.
And what about this?
Yes.
Yes. So you're going to be making a function that returns whether it's true or false, that the string that was passed in is balanced or not.
Okay.
Let me know when you want me to stop screen
You
sharing.
can stop sharing screens.
Okay. And then when you're ready, go ahead and share your screen.
Okay. So I'm going to be making a function, right?
Yes. Main has already been declared. It just needs the function for the conditions for printing out if it's balanced or not.
All right. Is I'm making a function right now. I'm going to pass in a string. And so what I'm going to do right now, if I'm making my return statements, because I know I'm going to have to return somewhere. All right. Um, so I know when I'm passed in this string, let me name it something else actually. Uh, phrase. So when I pass in this string, I'm gonna want to look individually at the values of the string. Um, in C++, a string is basically an array of chars.
Mhm.
So my thought process is, let me annotate. So say I have a string, hold on. Oh wait, no. Wait, that's good, that's good. This. This value would be index 0, index 1, index 2, index 3, index 4.
Let me clarify that the user's string will not contain any x plus or 4. It's just going to be the parentheses or
Oh,
brackets.
it's just gonna be literally like,
Yeah, it's just literally the brackets or parentheses like that. Yeah,
oh,
no numbers that you have to account for.
okay, so say it's the same thing. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. In this case, this would not be balanced because if you have this um, bracket right here, it doesn't have its other uh, pair.
Yeah,
So I'm thinking about making um, 3 sets of if statements to after it if you find one, you have to iterate to find the other. Also, is this a certain case where if you have a parenthesis like this, and then later on you have a parenthesis like this, that won't happen?
that is a possibility.
But is this balanced? No, right?
That is not balanced, correct?
Okay. So I'm just gonna assume every time I get this value first, um, that is not balanced. Um, so that it can be an easy return false.
Okay.
So let's see. I'm going to make a for loop um if my syntax is bad with strings, I apologize, but
So far, it's looking all right.
all right. I'm pretty sure it's like string dot length,
It is.
whatever. um, so I've made a for loop, so I'm gonna iterate through this string's entire length, the amount it is. So what I want to do now is create my if statement. So if hmm if phrase I'm actually not quite sure if this um is correct syntax.
Remember that for char, it's not between quotations, but rather what?
Oh yeah, you're right. Or
There you go, much better.
oh shoot. Okay, so if I find the first parenthesis and it's true, oh, I have to iterate through every value. Um, I'm gonna ask for a hint.
Okay. So for a hint, notice how all the parentheses, brackets, and squirrely brackets,
Mhm,
they're contiguous with each other, right?
mhm.
What type of data structure do you know that can utilize them being contiguous to each other?
Um, Vectors, arrays,
Anything
um,
else?
uh, stacks, queues.
Okay, so which one of those four data structures you think will be utilized best, in your own opinion?
Probably, um, I'm pretty sure you could do it with either one of those, but I think the way I'm gonna try is with vectors
Okay, and how come a vector?
because um, when I push back every value of the string, um, in that case, I don't really need, I can do this another way, but if I push back every char into a vector of chars, um, and I iterate through the vector, I can find if it starts with a parenthesis, um, the right way, um, and later on there's a close parenthesis, then that case it's true. Um, and I will continue to iterate through my vector um, and provide if cases for the squiggly one and the bracket to make sure they're also closed and balanced. So let's try that. Let's initialize a vector. So right now I'm going to this is going to be my um, vector to push back every individual char into my uh into my vector, yeah. Um from there, I could do the if statements in this for loop, which would probably be more optimal. Did I do that wrong?
That should be right.
If it contains that, then I'm gonna do something real quick. So what this is doing is it's going to think so. So what this is gonna do is that when I find a value first, this is going to always be an index that's ahead of that one. So um, I think I'm actually doing this wrong, but every time I find a value, I iterate through it and see if I can find the other one. But I can do this a different way.
Yeah, and a question I have for you for that type of approach is, let's take a look at that example to your right, the second blue one, right?
Mhm.
So what happens when we're looking for a match for the squiggly bracket, curly bracket, there you go, between 2 and 4, if we're going to be starting from 1.
So if we start from one, I is at 0. So in the chart or in this vector, it's going to be pushing back everything. So once I get to 2, it's going to push back the first squiggly bracket, and j is going to be 3. So if for this purpose, if my vector at 2 is equivalent to um, this value, then it's going to compare the value at 3. But what I want it to do is when it starts at 2, I want it to go all the way to 4. So iterate 3 and 4. And once it finds 4, then it's going to be like, okay, it's balanced. So I'm gonna make a while loop instead. While I is less than the string's length, and I'm going to put this pushback statement here.
And what was the reason behind changing from a for loop to a while loop?
The reasoning is because I want to have when I what I said before, when I get to like say 2, I want my J loop to iterate through the entire string before I go to the next I value. So in this case, if my vector at I is equal to a certain bracket, then so what I did here is I did um this is all under the while loop. So every time I go through an I value in the while loop, ooh, I need to iterate. Um every time I go through the while loop, oops. Every time I go through a value in the while loop, I push back a the value in the vector. And ooh, here I create a for loop so I could push back all the values onto a vector. And then here, I'm also going to iterate through that vector. while also using J to go through the rest of the string.
I see. Um, and you think it could be perhaps costly? Actually, no, because what originally I was thinking was, would it be costly to have a lot of if statements with, checking for each type of parentheses or bracket? For example, you have one there with a squiggly, with a curly bracket, but then what about for regular parentheses and then regular bracket? Um, and for this, I want you to think of something. For your vector, would it be more efficient to have every single one of the elements in the vector, or would it be more efficient to have one element in the vector at a time?
That's true. Um, all right. I'm actually gonna switch this and try that. So initialize my vector, go through the vector, and I'm gonna do an if statement. Um, if the string at the k index contains this, or phrase at k equals or phrase at k equals then what I want to do is push back the values onto the individual parenthesis at the index of the string to the vector. Then
Just a quick reminder, we have 5 minutes left of the coding portion before we move on to solution and critique.
okay. Mm,
And unfortunately, time is up for this section of
So
the
sorry.
interview. Okay, so looking at your code right now, it seems you were on the right path. For example, you do iterate through the length of the string as well as have a data structure to hold those chars, whether it be a vector or in one case we could have used a stack. And let me share my screen right now.
Okay.
If you can enable me to share screen. There you go, thank you. So I have the an example here. So for here, we declare a stack, but in your case, we had a vector. So what we could have done is with that vector, we could have kind of used as a stack. So right here, this is what you implemented for iterating through the length of the string. So while iterating, you're going to have an if statement determining whether the vector in your case is empty. So if it's empty, then you're going to push in a character and an index. Let's take example, this one, this, this, and this. And should this be open or should this be balanced or not balanced?
That looks balanced. I'm not
Yeah, it's balanced. Good.
okay.
So, um, so then right here, if the vector in our case was empty, then we push this onto the vector. So right now the vector has an open parentheses, right?
Mhm.
So then from here, we would check. Um, we'll push this and then we'll loop again. So now we're at index 2, right?
Mhm.
We're now looking at this open parentheses, right?
Mhm.
Or the closed parentheses. In this closed parentheses case, we would do the else if statement, saying that if temp, which is our vector right here, top, since we're using a vector, we use dot front. If that is equal to open parentheses and the phrase at the index where we're currently at, which is the closed parentheses, is equal to closed parentheses, then what happens is what's in the vector gets popped, leaving us with an empty vector. And then but if it's not, for example, let's say we have this case. We have open parentheses, open curly bracket, close curly bracket, close parentheses. Let's say we have this case. So in our vector, we will push this if it's empty. Next we check, is this a closed bracket? Because we have these if statements right here, right?
Mhm.
Is it a closed parentheses?
Oh, sorry. That is not.
Not. So what happens is this gets pushed back onto the vector right here. So now we have a open parentheses and we have an open curly bracket. So from here, we iterate again through our list. And then once we have right here, this is a closed bracket, and we see that in our else if statement, this matches with one of the conditions, which is the second condition saying that temp, not top, well, top in this case is front for the vector, and phrase at I is equal to close parentheses, then it would pop off this, leaving us again with an open parentheses. And then from there, we will move on to right here, this next index at I, and we compare, is one of them, is the else if statement executed or no?
What did you say? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so when we're at index I for the phrase, we have a closed parentheses. And then let's check our else if statement right here. Does the
It
else
would
if
satisfy.
statement, yeah, it satisfies, so then it executes, right? And if it executes, then that means this gets popped off, leaving us with an empty vector. So if we check if the vector is empty, that means, well, first off, when we iterate through the entire string, right?
Mhm.
If by the time we're done iterating through the entire string, it's empty,
Mhm.
then we know that it's balanced. But if not, then we know that's false.
Okay.
Any question about that solution or no?
No, that's pretty smart.
hmm Okay, and then my criticism. Let me stop sharing my screen. Okay, so for my criticism for you is what went well. I feel like you had a very good, strong beginning. You had a good edge case. One edge case you did was if it was like the closing statement that began first, that was that means that it would not be balanced at all. So that
Mhm.
was a very good edge case that you made that I didn't see I didn't even think of doing. Um you had a good beginning with the solution with iterating through the string. That's something that also went well. And the parts that I think you can improve upon is perhaps thinking out loud. Because if you think out loud and explain your process step by step more often, then you'll start to see parts where you can improve, as well as
Mhm.
parts that can maybe that you see don't work, and then you can implement a newer solution.
Mhm.
And then I like that you asked a good like the questions you asked in the beginning were very quality. And the example you showed with like the x plus 4, I'm glad you showed that because I was able to correct that. And
Mhm.
and if that wasn't the case and you just assumed that and jumped straight into the code, then it would have given you a different solution.
Mhm.
Um, the strain, let's see, the strains I observed from you were that you had a determination for the solution you had, as in you wanted to plan everything out. But like I said, that was a bit undermined by not thinking out loud to see like by thinking out loud, you can see like where in the step process something could either go very right or very wrong.
Mhm.
How can the interviewee improve their problem solving skills? Um, so I think the best way to just improve is just, like I said, talking out loud, see, and maybe writing out more steps,
Mhm.
writing out on the whiteboard just to see like how the code executes, as well as maybe writing other examples.
True.
Um, and then let's see. And like I said before in the beginning, that the questions you asked in the very beginning were very good. Like I appreciate that you asked about let's see. Mm, I appreciate how you asked about about like what counts as a balance, like with the like I said with the edge case. Like if you have like the closing at the very beginning, then yeah, that would never be balanced.
Mhm.
As well as some things. Other tips I could give you about the interview process in terms of non-technical,
Mhm.
I would say maybe one question I felt that could have been asked was about how to, like, in what way could we use a data structure? For example, with like the vector, one of the hints I gave was, would it be better to add every element to that vector in the beginning or add one at a time? And as you saw with the solution, that was the reasoning why I said it would be better, or I gave the hint about why it would be better to add one element at a time rather than adding each and every one of them.
Mhm.
Um, Another strength I would add upon would be very clear syntax as well. I liked how you formatted your code onto the Word document as well.
Mhm.
And let me see. And I think to improve problem solving skills, I would recommend seeing if there is a data structure. Like I said, because in the beginning, you just wanted to iterate through a loop, but I gave you the idea of using a data structure in the beginning. Maybe see if there's like a data structure. Think about its properties. Like, is it continuous? Contiguous? How is the order of it? First in, first out versus first in, last out. How can
Mhm.
that help me in solving the problem?
Mhm.
And that's going to be all of my feedback. Any questions?
No, that's it.
Okay, well, that's going to be it for this interview.
I bet, Mr. Google. Let me stop recording.
All
Hold
right.
on.